Hello and good afternoon. I was doing some research on the internet and I was listening to some of the physicists in the world, and there was a Nobel Peace Prize winning physicist that resigned from an organization he was part of. And this should not be a debate. Okay, we talk about simple arithmetic and how to, you know, see what's going on around us in a real sense. Okay, now I agree with global warming. Now, I got to explain why. Because a lot of people agree and disagree, and they don't give you an adequate reason as to why it's happening. Some say it's a trend. Some say it's a cycle. Some say that it's just occurring. But I'm going to give you some factual things. Let's use some science. Okay? First of all, we know in science that pretty much everything is in a state of change or decay. Okay? We know this. We know that energy changes form. Okay? We know these things. We know the basics, fundamentals of physics, okay? And that's wonderful and dandy. But now let's get to some crucial things that are used in science and chemistry to explain why I believe that global warming is a real and constant threat to the world. First of all, I'm going to talk about a thing called a catalyst. A catalyst changes the physical outcome of something, okay? Whether it be an increase or a decrease in whatever it's interacting with. Like, for instance, chemicals. Chemicals have different reactions, when they're mixed together. Now, we're going to look at the state of the world. Now, is it man-made, this global warming? Is it man-made? Okay, first of all, we talk about carbon emissions. But no one's talking about all the other chemicals that are pumped in the atmosphere that are manufactured. Some are isothermic. They react with heat. They can be violently reactive with heat, aluminum oxide, and tons of other chemicals you don't even hear about. These scientists only work on specific points. Their data only deals with the global mean temperature or the surface temperature or the atmospheric temperature. They're not dealing with all the things together. We had to come to the conclusion that there are chain reactions. So that's another term I'm going to use with the catalyst, chain reaction. There's going to be an action, reaction, there's going to be something happening with all these chemicals floating in the atmosphere and on the earth that we're producing. Okay? Now, let's go to the point of trend. Everybody says this is a trend. The earth goes through cycles and stuff like that. But I believe we're actually causing these trends to change because of the catalyst we're putting involved in here, the human factor. Okay, now understand, yes, the earth goes through trends, warming trends and cooling trends, obviously. But in the last 100 years, man has put his footprint or fingerprint on the temperature, on the climate, and all these things. So, like one scientist said about basic math, okay, that's fine and dandy, but it depends on what you're adding. Every number has a different value, okay? You're brilliant. You must be a brilliant physicist to take it and break it down to a very simplistic way. But understand, even when you add numbers, not every number adds up to a specific same number. There's variations. There's no absolute in this, okay? Because we can see the changes all around us. I know I'm randomly throwing these things out to you, but I want to get it clear. I'm going to isolate these few things that affect climate change, and a lot of scientists only deal with one issue or one set of data. I'm dealing with all the data, not just one little thing, okay? Okay, now I'm going to go back to the word catalyst. Write this word down and read and find out what it means. Next, what is a trend? Find out what a trend is. Research and find out all the chemicals that are in the atmosphere and on the earth that we're being exposed to, and the earth's being exposed to, and seek out and find out what the chemical reactions are. What happens when these chemicals react with one another, whether isothermic or whatever. And look up those terms and find out for yourself what it means. And find out what chemicals actually are in the atmosphere and how they react with one another. And there are many, 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 many other aspects you can put into this play of global warming, but man has a part in it. Okay? Just to say that it's a trend is not being very intellectual, it's not being very thought out. We're just agreeing with it, or in denial of what's going on. I think if you're an analytical mind and you want to find out what's really, break things down. Look at all the aspects. You can't just pinpoint and say, well, this is causing it and that's causing it. You got to look at all the underlying factors and how they interact with each other. That's how you find out. And if you're truly a scientist or a physicist that really wants to see things from what you call we have the ideal world and we have the real world. The ideal world is all the things meshed together the way they should. The real world is unpredictable, and that's what you got to work with. Random unpredictability and things like that. And yes, everything's in a constant state of change, flux. You got to look at it from that point of view. You can't just look at your little bit of data you have on a piece of paper, because that data will change just as science changes over time. Not everything that you hear or think to be real is absolute. Things change. We thought atoms only had electrons and protons and neutrons and all that fun stuff, but it has quarks and it has other things we couldn't see because we didn't have the technology, nor did we have the ability to understand those things yet. And there's tons of other things. This is what I'm trying to get at. If you really are concerned and want to know what's going on in your environment, you have to look at all the underlying factors. And I'm saying catalyst is a big factor because we add to things in life. Just imagine this for a moment, okay? We have a garbage heap. It's not a big threat. We have landfills and stuff like that. But over time, when you keep adding garbage to landfills, and there's methane vents. They have to burn off the methane because it's toxic, okay? There's methane vents. I worked at a landfill, and methane is being pumped in the atmosphere too, but we're not looking at all the factors. You have many different things being pumped in the atmosphere other than just CO2. And this is where the danger comes. We're changing weather. We're changing the outcome of climate because we're pumping so much crap in the atmosphere. Look at the radiation that's in the atmosphere as well. We're introduced with the radiation from Japan. It has to have an effect on the atmosphere. It's floating around. It's in a cloud of vapor in the atmosphere. So it definitely has some kind of effect on climate. And there are tons of things that are affecting climate. And most of them are man-made. You got to clearly look at things from the way they really are, not from a perspective of one person says one thing, another person says another. You got to look at all those things. And if you're a scientist and you have an analytical mind, you got to look into all these aspects. Get into the clinical mind. Everything has to be politically correct in science, and physics has to follow a certain rules and principles and all that stuff. But remember, quantum physics came into play. Molecular physics came into play. All kinds of things else came into play and taught us that we didn't actually know what was really going on in things around us. So you can't just take it for granted and say, I believe in global warming or I don't believe in global warming. You have to analyze and dig through all this stuff and put it all together and come out with an analysis, come out with a big picture. What is the big picture? Is it or is it not global warming? And I'm telling you, if you weigh and put all these things together and you add the numbers, simple arithmetic like one physicist has said, and you're going to find out there's going to be an outcome. There's going to be a specific number that indicates what's going on. Okay? Like he said, simple arithmetic. So I'm saying to this physicist, with simple arithmetic, look at all the underlying factors of what's going on. Okay? And then tell me later whether you believe global warming is real or not. Okay? Just being a physicist does not make you the in-all of understanding. Don't get me wrong, I believe in math, and math has its place, but math changes, okay? The very principle of math doesn't change, but the outcome and the different equations and formulas are mixed together and put together, they have different outcomes. There's no absolute outcome. But we can come to a definitive picture on what's really going on, okay? So take all the data, all the information, all these things, put them all together, and slowly calculate it, break it down, and break it down to where you get to a point where you can find a picture of what's truly going on. And then come back to me and tell me that global warming is not real. Because I believe it's real. I crunch the numbers, but I crunch the numbers in a much different way than scientists would. I crunched it through analysis. I crunched it through experience. I crunched it through what I'm seeing in my natural senses. I crunched it through research, and I crunched it through just common sense. Something's happening. Common sense tells me something's happening in the world, and things are about to change globally, weather-wise, and people were going to have to change with it and adapt with it. So I know I'm a little salad brain when I'm explaining these things, but there's so much going on inside my psyche that I just can't express it all. But I'm telling you, something truly is happening to this world, and we're playing a role in it. And to say that we are not playing a role in it is absolutely wrong. And yes, trends do happen, but we're affecting the trends. We're affecting the outcome of what's happening. We're actually accelerating things. So think about things and look into it. I know I'm rambling on here, but please, think about it. Really think about it. Find out what's real. Okay, peace out.